Sup, guys? It's Toad back with you as usual. And as usual, not a great voice going on here. So let's try to get this done. I've got my Celtics hat on instead of my Santa hat, which is back behind me still, as you can see. I have all my Boston hats behind me and my Santa hat. It is Christmas weekend, at least. Merry Sunday to everybody. Got my Celtics hat on because it was good luck yesterday, and we got us a winning day, a 4-2 day, I think is what it was. And the Celtics, of course, were a big part of that. The Celtics were able to get that win by margin. It was looking a little dicey out like through the second quarter, but I was still like, yeah, I'm not too worried about this. I think they're still going to do it. They pushed the lead to 7 at the half, and I'm like, okay, they're going to get this done. So the Celtics, yeah, I mean, they completely ran away with it in the second half. Easy win. The college basketball went 2-1. East Tennessee State didn't get there. I mean, yet again, it was a second straight ridiculous shooting performance from 3-point range from who was it that I faded there? I don't even remember. Whoever I faded in that game put up a ridiculous 3-point percentage again in that game. UMKC, I think, Kansas City, the ruse. I don't know how they keep doing that. It is a ruse. So I lost that one, but I won fairly easily on South Florida and Creighton. So that felt good. Nailing those early Big East Conference games, which, by the way, I'm playing one of them today as my one college basketball play. So I'll get to that in a minute. I will have a few plays today here. And then one on I lost on hockey yesterday. I decided to take a shot on the Buffalo Sabres. Bad spot for my Boston Bruins. It wasn't the greatest spot for Buffalo. Maybe I should have just stayed off. And of course, my leans were correct with the Islanders, who I didn't want to play just because they've been screwing me repeatedly. And the Philadelphia Flyers, although it took overtime for them to get there, but those both won. So great. My two stronger hockey leans both got there, and the one that I decided to fire on didn't get there. Although when you fire on an underdog of a price like Buffalo was, you don't necessarily expect them to actually win every single game. It's just a numbers game where you're trying to win more of those games than is necessary to just profit off of it. So you're really only trying to hit like 40-something% of those types of plays at like a plus 162 underdog price. So that one didn't get there. It didn't ruin my day at all. So the 4-2 day was actually better than a typical 4-2 day because that one I threw like less money on because I always throw a smaller amount when I do a money line like that just to try to win the same amount that I try to win on the other games. So that didn't matter that much. And then finished the night off with an easy win on Ohio State. I was right on every college football league. College football has been, I've just been seeing college football nicely so far, let's say, especially in these competitive games. I was right about every favorite covering in the first round of the playoffs there. So I nailed those. I will talk about the next round of the playoffs once we get there. The lines are out. I don't expect them to move like that significantly, though, because these are competitive games. So there's not going to be like in the bowls with players opting out and whatever. That's not going to be happening. But I've seen the bowls well, too, in the Bowl Mania spread game on ESPN. I'm 10-1 against the spread in that right now, even though some of the lines got a little bit stale. But even so, it's a little bit crazy that that's the case. But I nailed them all. And Ohio State was certainly not a bad way to go in that one. Out of all the first round games, that one wound up being maybe the easiest of all those wins, man. I mean, there was a garbage time score there at the end for Tennessee. Ohio State ran away with that game, man. Even when Tennessee scored to make it a little bit like questionable in the second quarter there, pushing a 21-0 deficit to 21-10. There were some questionable reffing calls in there too, I thought. So I don't know. But then Ohio State came out of the gate in the second half and made some adjustments at halftime to what was going on. So that I think that actually helped. The Tennessee made that run late in the second quarter. It meant that Ohio State actually had some things to correct in the locker room at halftime, and they came out and scored 21 unanswered points after that. So, yep. It felt good. I like that, even though I'm not a fan of Ohio State by any means. But when I have money on them, I'm rooting for them. So there you go. All right. Let's talk about the NFL here first before I get over to the other plays. You can watch my NFL video. I know I didn't do it last night. I usually do it on Saturday nights, but because there were 2 Saturday games, college football doesn't have a full Saturday slate anymore. So I did my NFL video on Friday night. So that is up on the channel. You can find that if you did not see it. I talked about every single game, although, of course, I talked about yesterday's game, so that has sort of expired now as far as that's concerned. But I really nailed the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game, which was the game I had stronger opinions on. The other game I couldn't really figure out, but Pittsburgh-Baltimore, I was right about the Ravens covering and right about the over. So if anybody got some action down on that game, hopefully it was on those plays there, which were my recommendations there. Looking at the NFL, though, I got 2 plays today, which I haven't added my other plays yet. Oh, shit. I haven't added any of my plays here. Oh, no. Let me add my plays in here real quick. I showed them on the NFL show that I did, but I will have other plays. I'll just do this as I go here. I forget what my 2 plays are. My 2 plays in the NFL are on the Jets +3, although as far as the market is concerned on that one, the Rams are looking like they're getting some money, even though they're very public. The money is coming in on that side, driving the line up a little bit. Might be able to get 3.5, which I prefer the 3.5 to the 3. Obviously, we'll see what we can get there. And I'm on Seattle +3, which it looks like that one's not going to get to 3.5. Of course, it looks like it's sitting mostly 3 and 2 with heavy juice there. That one looks good to me with the Vikings getting a much higher ticket percentage than the cash percentage. So I'm liking that one. The money, the market read on the Jets one looks a little bit more questionable, but I like the spot. So those are my 2 plays there. You can go watch my NFL video for the detailed analysis on that. As far as my analysis is concerned, I don't think I would really change any of what I said in that video. I mean, it does look like the Eagles are getting some money coming in on them, even though I said I lean to Washington. I'm not sure I would change that lean, though. I mean, the Eagles are public, but it's just weird that we do see some late money coming and driving that line up further on the Eagles. So we'll see what happens with all of this, with whatever happens here today. Yeah, and then 49ers Dolphins, kind of interesting. The 49ers kept moving up to -2. So I said that it looked like the money was coming in on the Niners side. So I kind of agreed with that. But now it looks like the cash percentage is coming in on the Dolphins side. But in a situation like this, I might read more into that line move, because it's like, what caused that line move? There wasn't really an injury situation or anything like that. I know Garendo is out for the 49ers, which isn't going to affect the line, but if it did, it would probably move towards the Dolphins more. So I don't know. I don't know if there's is Tyreek Hill not playing? I don't know what's going on, why this line would have moved like that other than actual line movement on the 49ers. But now I think maybe that it got up to a higher number. Maybe that's why there's money starting to come in on the Dolphins side. I don't know, but it's a game where it's basically like pick the winner. So that's kind of a tough read, but we'll see. Let's go to college basketball here, man. This is not a very interesting college basketball slate. We got some of the big boys are playing today, but they're mostly playing cupcakes. But we do have this game mixed in here with Illinois and Missouri playing in St. Louis, Missouri. So it's this neutral site game, kind of equidistant between the 2 schools almost. This is an interesting one, man. Illinois, my first instinct on this was, well, Illinois is probably in a fade spot here because they're coming off a bunch of big games in a row. I mean, they beat a ranked Arkansas team with John Calipari there. Now they started Big Ten play, lost on the road at Northwestern. I was on Northwestern in that game. I thought it was a sandwich for Illinois coming off the big ranked Arkansas matchup with Wisconsin up next. Then they bounced back from that Northwestern loss and they beat Wisconsin. I actually lost on Illinois in this one because they missed the cover by a half point at the end there, which was brutal for me. I've actually been on 3 straight games involving Illinois, and I'm 1-2 in those, so isn't that great? So this one probably should have been a win for me. They did win against Wisconsin. Then they had to turn around and play the number 1 ranked Tennessee team at the time, and I had Illinois +1.5 in that one. And I probably should have won that game too. Illinois was winning some of that game, and then Tennessee scored at the buzzer to win that game, where all I needed Illinois to do was to come within 1 point in that one, really. That was brutal as well. So now Illinois is coming off all those big games, man, and now they get Missouri. So to me, it was like, well, after that run of big games, it looks like Illinois could be a little bit fatigued, maybe run out of steam a little bit, but it's not like they're going to overlook a 10-1 Missouri team. And the problem that I have with maybe trying to take Missouri here is that, yeah, Missouri has a nice looking record, but Missouri has faced a pretty easy schedule, man. I mean, I had that one good win mixed in there against Kansas. That's pretty good. They lost to Memphis, which is not a bad loss, but other than that, very weak schedule. So Illinois has faced a much stronger schedule. so far. So that's the problem I have with this, is that the public's going to come in and look at this and think, wait a minute, Illinois has a worse record, but they're -3.5. So I think the public might come in and maybe think that that it looks like maybe there's some value taking the 10-1 Missouri team there. Even though I think Illinois is actually kind of a public team just because of their name. It does look like they have 51% of the tickets on them, 54% of the cash on Missouri, with the line moving down on Illinois from 4.5 to 3.5. I still don't think I disagree with taking the points with Missouri in this one, just because Illinois is coming off that brutal stretch of games, whereas, as you saw, Missouri's coming off some easy games. So they just have momentum coming into this game. So I do still kind of lean to taking the points with Missouri there, but the odds makers are telling you Illinois is the better of these two teams, despite the worse record, which I also agree with. So I'm just going to stay away from this game. And like I said, yeah, Illinois, I mean, they're the much more battle-tested team, though. They faced a more difficult schedule, and fairly significantly so. So that's how that game goes. And then we got, well, we do have my one play, and then I guess the other couple of interesting games here, which I don't really have a read on. St. Louis and Grand Canyon. This could be an interesting game just because Grand Canyon doesn't have a very good record so far. They played a pretty difficult schedule, man. So that's why they're laying 10.5, despite not having a really good, good-looking record here. They're also 6-1 at home. So I would probably not come in and try to fade Grand Canyon at home. I mean, they've been very good at home. St. Louis is 0-2 on the road so far. So Grand Canyon does still kind of look like it's probably the way to go in this game, but it's against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, man, assuming he's not hurt again. Robbie Avila playing for St. Louis here, but they're off to kind of a mediocre 6-5 start. Although Grand Canyon, like I said, their record doesn't look that great either, 7-4, but they faced a pretty difficult schedule, more difficult than St. Louis's, which is why the odds makers are telling you Grand Canyon is the significantly better of these two teams, despite St. Louis having the biggest name in that game, which is Avila. So maybe the public might be coming in a little bit more so on St. Louis. So it looks like 88% of tickets on Grand Canyon, 100% of the cash. Probably not accurate, but it looks like the cash is driving the line up on Grand Canyon from 8 to 9.5 with juice. So it's probably around like 10 out there right now. I'm not going to try to touch that one. And then Utah State St. Mary's is one of the biggest games on the slate as well. This is a good matchup, man, between two non-big conference teams. These are both good teams, man. Utah State and St. Mary's. St. Mary's up from 4.5 to 5 with juice. 93% of tickets, 100% of the cash on St. Mary's. I wouldn't read too much into these percentages. I do think we see legitimate line movement on both Grand Canyon and St. Mary's here, and probably I would agree with both of those sides. Utah State, I mean, arguably they're in a bounce back spot, though, because they just lost as a big favorite to UC San Diego, which I was looking to maybe fade UC San Diego yesterday against San Diego, because San Diego has basically become the little brother suddenly in that matchup. With UC San Diego is new to Division I, and they're already the better team over San Diego. So San Diego is playing like third fiddle in San Diego now to San Diego State and UC San Diego. So UC San Diego went into that game yesterday after that big win over Utah State, huge upset. So I did think UC San Diego was in a fade spot yesterday, but I didn't really want to put my money on San Diego. And UC San Diego did have the lead for most of that game, but they did wind up not covering in that game. So San Diego did at least cover. So I was right about that lean as well. But Utah State, you could take this two ways, man. Either you could say, well, they lost kind of embarrassingly to a team they should have beaten, a team they were a big favorite over, even though UC San Diego is a good team. They have a pretty good record. They're just not as good as Utah State. But Utah State, so either they're going to be in a bounce back spot off of this, or they're going to be hung over because that was their first loss of the season. And I always say when a team loses their undefeated status, sometimes that does not affect them very well. And it has kind of a carryover effect into the next game. And that could happen here. And they do start Mountain West play right after this in 6 days against San Diego State, who is ranked right now and is, again, one of the top teams in the Mountain West. I don't think they're going to overlook St. Mary's, though. I mean, St. Mary's is a very good team. Everybody knows this. Both these teams have really good records. The St. Mary's is also very formidable at home, 7-0 at home so far. It's not easy to go in and beat them there. And Utah State, I mean, this is their first true road game of the entire season, this late into the season. So I would lean to St. Mary's. All that being said, But my actual play that I'm on, and it looks like the market percentages are agreeing with me on this one. I'm going to the Big East, like I said, which is one of the bigger games on the slate, even though it's between two really ugly Big East teams. And if you know how I do this, you probably know which way I'm going here. It is Seton Hall plus 2.5 is my actual play here. Georgetown is up from 1.5, bordering on 3. You might be able to get 3 on this. Just go look and grab the best number that you can here. 56% of tickets on Georgetown, but 70% of the cash coming in on Seton Hall. So I know Seton Hall's a bad team, dude. I know they're down this year. They're not good at all, but look at these records. I think the records are somewhat misleading, even though, yes, Georgetown is the better team. Odds makers are telling you this. Georgetown is laying 2.5 on the road. Yeah, so they're the better team, but this 9-2 record I still think is misleading, man. I don't think Georgetown is so much the better team that that really it makes sense to lay points on the road with them in this spot. Seton Hall started off 5-7, but here's the thing, man. Georgetown has faced a really easy schedule. If you look at Ken Palm's rankings here, he's got Georgetown as one of the bottom 15 or 20 strength of schedules in the entire country, and he's got Seton Hall somewhere in the top half in strength of schedule, maybe even stronger than that. So there's a huge strength of schedule disparity here. Georgetown, I mean, when they've stepped up in class, they also haven't really done that well, except for that game against Creighton. I mean, they lost to Notre Dame. Notre Dame's not even that good. Other than that, they beat a whole bunch of cupcakes. Then probably the best team they played was on the road at West Virginia. They lost that game. They beat Syracuse, who's not very good this year, really. And then their one huge win was their last game. They blew out Creighton. And because of that game, I thought that game was a major outlier, man. So I came back and I played Creighton yesterday in the bounce back spot over Villanova, and Creighton got me the money in that one. That was a nice, pretty easy win on Creighton there. So I'm going to fade the other side of this matchup as well. This game was ridiculous, man. Georgetown, look at what they did in this game. As I pointed out yesterday, 55% shooting and 62.5 from 3. Really? You think any team's going to sustain something like that multiple games in a row? I mean, it's possible, but I would say it's unlikely, man. Georgetown, they were 10 for 16 from 3 in this game. Yeah, okay. I don't think you're going to see anything like that again, man. Georgetown, I expect a major regression out of Georgetown here. So Georgetown, not only have they faced the much better schedule, but Ken Palm also has them really high in luck index, and he has Seton Hall towards the bottom of luck index. So he's also telling you that Seton Hall has faced the more difficult schedule, and Georgetown probably should have a worse record than what they do have right now. And Seton Hall should probably have a somewhat better record than what they do have right now, even though, yes, I know Georgetown is still the better of these two teams, but Georgetown is not as good as their record looks. Seton Hall is probably not quite as bad as their record looks. Neither of these teams are good. I mean, I think Ken Palm has Seton Hall somewhere he doesn't even have them in the top 100, I think, and he has Georgetown probably in the 70s. So we're not looking at two great teams here. And Seton Hall, just to look at their schedule real quick, I mean, they've faced a more difficult schedule, like I said. I mean, Fordham and Hofstra, those are just weird, close, ugly, low-scoring games. Those teams aren't really that bad. Beating VCU was a nice win. I mean, Vandy isn't that bad a team. They beat FAU. They're not that bad a team. A loss to Monmouth is bad. That's ugly. I will say that. Oklahoma State's not that good either. Rutgers not that good. So that was kind of a bad upset loss there. Or was that an upset loss? No, that wasn't an upset loss. What am I saying? Rutgers was still a huge favorite in that game. What am I saying? So Seton Hall actually played pretty well in that game. Actually, Rutgers was actually a double-digit favorite in that game. My mistake. So that game was actually not that bad either. It was competitive. And then a loss to Villanova, whatever. So Seton Hall, they're still looking for their first Big East win. They played their last 2 games on the road. So this is their Big East home opener here, I believe. So it's a big deal. It's a big game for them, man. Their first home game. They're looking for their first conference win so far. Their own one in conference. So the Villanova game was their opener. So I think this is a big game for Seton Hall, man. And it's a bounce back spot because even though Villanova, I mean, it's a tough opponent. They play physical defense. Villanova shot 42.9% from 3 in this game. And I know Seton Hall doesn't shoot well, so I don't expect them to really shoot that much better than what we're seeing out of these games that I'm looking at for them. But still, Villanova shot much higher than you would expect out of them. These teams are not great offensive teams here. Neither of them. They play slow, ugly basketball. And Seton Hall, they lost that game pretty badly. They were out of that game. So I think it's a bounce back spot for Seton Hall, whereas Georgetown, they're coming off such a high, man, beating Creighton, not only beating Creighton, but absolutely annihilating Creighton. And like I said, Georgetown cannot repeat a shooting performance like that. They shot way too much, way too well from three. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm expecting a regression. They have to go back out on the road here, where Georgetown on the road hasn't been that good. Let me see. What was their road record again? Oh, they're 1-1 on the road, but they're one road win, Syracuse. I mean, not horrible win really, but whatever. Syracuse is definitely not up to the level that we expect out of Syracuse right now. So going out on the road for this first conference road game off of such a high, man, after you beat Creighton, a team that's been one of the best teams in this conference for the last couple of years by that much, you're going to be feeling real high on yourselves, man. And you have to play this game against a below 500 Seton Hall team. It's really been struggling before you then go into the holiday break. Yeah, I don't know. It's possible Georgetown doesn't totally have focus here, whereas Seton Hall, they want to get a win by any means, I think. So I expect Seton Hall to be the more motivated team here. I do think the line is probably about where it should be. I mean, I think KenPom has this line around 3 for Georgetown. So the line value, I think, is not necessarily there one way or the other, but this is a situational spot. Give me Seton Hall plus 2.5 in that one. And I think the public, like I said, is probably going to wind up in disagreement with that. It looks like there's a pretty big cash versus ticket disparity in that one. The line has moved up a little bit though, but I mean, I would take more, I would take this percentage more into account than what the line did in this case. You got to figure out how to read these markets, but also, again, it's just the situation is telling me that that's the play. So that's what I'm going to do there. I'm going to talk about NHL in 1 second here. And I do have one NBA play here. I don't have anything in the NHL though. NHL, I mean, I'll talk about a couple of these games real quick. Carolina and the Rangers. I mean, this is the biggest game probably. Well, there are a few big games actually. I don't know. We get some decent games today. This is a big game though with Carolina against the Rangers. The Rangers do have a little bit of recent revenge, as Carolina, I think, got playoff revenge against them because I think the Rangers eliminated them last year. Carolina was able to beat them on November 27th. Now Carolina is in a back-to-back spot playing 2 straight road games, and they went into Washington and lost. That was a big game, losing to Washington. So they have to turn around right away and play the Rangers, who they already just beat pretty recently. So to me, it looks like the lean would probably be to the Rangers side in this one. And my apologies. It's not a back-to-back. They have 1 day off in here, but it is still a second straight road game. So I thought it was a back-to-back, which would have made it a little bit worse for Carolina. So it is not a back-to-back, but still, I mean, it doesn't look that great for them. But the problem is the Rangers are returning home from a road trip. So I don't love playing on teams coming back from road trips either, man. I mean, you have to settle back in. They've been gone for like a week, especially around the holidays. You have stuff to do around the house and stuff. It could be a distraction. Rangers are coming off a nice big win over Dallas. But the thing is, I mean, I don't think they're going to be unfocused with the Carolina Hurricanes coming into their place. Hurricanes just beat them recently. Hurricanes playing really well right now. And Rangers, they need to get wins, man. And I think that win could maybe start some new momentum for them, because that win broke an ugly loss streak for them. So the Rangers, I don't think they're going to be really unfocused in this one. It's just a matter of, well, like how much is that return home distraction spot going to come in? So you get some factors saying they should be distracted here. Some factors saying they shouldn't be. So it's definitely a stay away from me. Carolina looks like they are taking the money up from -135 to -150, 67% of tickets, 74% of the cash. Like I said, I don't really think I necessarily agree with the Carolina side in this one, but the Rangers, I mean, it is a tough spot returning home from a road trip, and Carolina is not in a back-to-back, although they are coming off that big game over Washington nonetheless. So I don't know how to read into that game, really. Florida's at Tampa Bay. I mean, should be a good game. I mean, it's a battle of two good Florida teams. Florida up from -106 to -107. They are public with 67% of the tickets. Money looks like it's coming in on the Tampa side, though, at 91% of the cash. It does look to me to be a little bit too easy to take Florida here, man. I mean, they're the returning champs. They have the better record. They're hot again right now. They're on a nice new hot streak here. So I would not want to try to come in and take Florida here. The line, again, just makes it look way too easy, where it's basically just you're going to pick the winner in this game. Florida just returned home Didn't even get caught in that spot. I thought that was a bad spot, man. They were returning home facing St. Louis, and they'd come off a couple of huge wins over Edmonton and Minnesota, returning home from a long road trip, taking them to the Pacific Northwest, and they had Tampa up next. St. Louis was not in a good spot either, though, because otherwise I would have played St. Louis in that game, and I would be unhappy because maybe I would have played St. Louis on the puck line, which would have mostly been a win, but I don't know, man. Florida, I mean, they almost got caught in that game. They won in overtime. Now they turn around and they go back out on the road, although it's just to Tampa for one game. But still, I mean, it doesn't look like the greatest spot to me for Florida, to be honest. Like, how long can they continue having a momentum like this? Tampa Bay does have momentum, even though they had a couple of days off. They're the more rested team here, and they've had to deal with less travel at the very least. And they just have momentum right now from beating some teams that aren't really that good. So I think this does set up a little bit better for Tampa in this game, but certainly not a play for me. And then Kings Washington is also a good game. Washington up from -135 to -147, 79% of tickets, 99% of the cash. So it does look like Washington is taking the money here, but Washington's coming up beating Carolina. I mean, that's a pretty big win when you beat Carolina, man. A big, I think that's a divisional win there too. So that's a big win. So coming off of that, I mean, are they going to be in a letdown spot facing a Western Conference team? I don't know. I think it is possible. And LA looks like they're in a bounce back spot to me because they just lost to the Nashville Predators in overtime. But the problem is, the reason why I don't want to come in on the Kings, because you're thinking, well, doesn't that mean you want to come in on the Kings? Because Washington's in a letdown spot. Kings should be in a bounce back spot. Well, yeah, but the problem is, look at this schedule for the Kings, man. They're on a back-to-back, playing a third game in 4 days, fourth game in 6 days, all in different cities, finishing up a long road trip here where, yeah, they're going to want to try to get the win here because I think they're 3-3 on the road trip. So they want to have a winning road trip, but still, the fatigue has got to be setting in here for the Kings, man. So I think that's why the money is coming in at Washington. It's because LA is in a very bad rest spot here. So I can't do it. I think it's a bad spot in both cases there. So again, I'll just stay away. Does that mean it's a situation where we might want to look to play the over? I mean, I don't know if I would hate that necessarily, but it's not going to be a play for me. So I'm going to stay away from that one as well. And those are basically the big games that are on tap there in. No, I don't want to go to stupid browser here, stupid pregame. All right. Now I'll go to the NBA before I conclude this video here. And I don't have a whole lot to say about the NBA, man. To me, when I first looked at this Pacers-Kings game, it looked like I was going to say, well, I think the Pacers might be in a bit of a bad spot here because they just beat Phoenix. That's a pretty big upset win, man. They went on the road, beat Phoenix to start the road trip. They got a couple of days off, which might kind of blow up this momentum that they have from this win streak. They do have Golden State and then Oklahoma City and then Boston twice all up next. So if they're going to overlook an opponent, it would probably be Sacramento in here, right? Because they're the lesser of these four opponents that are grouped in here. So it looks like a sandwich spot to me for the Pacers. So my instinct was I want to maybe come in and take Sacramento here. Sacramento with an ugly below 500 record, which I think is not indicative of what they actually are. I don't think Sacramento is actually that bad. But then the problem is Sacramento's playing a back-to-back. They're playing a third game in 4 days, and they're coming off playing pretty close to the Lakers here. To, you know, when you play LeBron and you play a difficult game like that, and it's a close game, it's tough to turn around and come off of that and play again right away, man. So I think it puts Sacramento in a spot that's not really that advantageous either. So I just can't come in and play it, even though I might still kind of like the Sacramento side just because they're at least still like looking for a win, but they're very unrested here, man. And that was a big effort for them at the very least. I'm surprised that Sacramento didn't win that game, to be honest, though. They were favored at home in both of these games against the Lakers and didn't get either one of them, not even in the zigzag when you have adjustments to make. So that also kind of tells me that maybe the Kings aren't in the right, I don't know, maybe they're not in the correct form right now, man. If they can't even zigzag back and win that next game against LA with the adjustments all to be made on the Kings side, I don't know what's going on with the Kings right now. Kings are down from 4-2, 57% of the tickets on them, but 59% of the cash coming in on the Pacers. So the market read looks like it's pretty heavy on the Pacers too, with the cash coming in on their side and the money being moved in their direction. So again, I would not want to actually come in and try to play the Kings in that one. But the game I am going to play, it's similar to what I did yesterday, man. I know I'm starting to play these public road favorites in the NBA. What am I doing, man? Isn't that against my DNA to do that? Well, maybe a little bit, but in a spot like this where I think the public and the professionals are in agreement, and it's a spot where you're playing a good team against a bad team, and it's in a more advantageous spot for the good team to bounce back, then yeah, I'll like to do that. I don't think it's a bad idea to do that. So I'm on the Denver Nuggets -9.5 here. I know I missed the better numbers here, but in basketball, 7 is the key number. So there's not that much of a difference between 7.5 and 9. It's all kind of in that same range above the 7. So either way, and it looks like this line is going to continue to climb because the public is coming in 77% of tickets, 99% of the cash on the Nuggets. So I think this line is going to continue to climb here, man. Nuggets, I mean, so I think it actually is indicating that even though some of the public is coming in on the Nuggets, they might be a little bit hesitant to lay a lot of points to the Nuggets, with the Nuggets having kind of an ugly record this year, although the Pelicans are basically as ugly as it gets. So the public is still going to come in on the Nuggets side, but it looks like maybe not to the extent that they should be, as it looks like the money is coming in on the Nuggets as well. Like I said, I mean, 7 is the key number in basketball because that's the 3-score threshold where teams stop intentionally fouling. So this line was already above 7. So 7.5 to 9.5. There's not a whole lot of a difference between those two, but hopefully it doesn't matter in this game, and hopefully it just gets there. I mean, this is actually more of a play on the Denver Nuggets, but it is somewhat of a play against the New Orleans Pelicans as well. The Pelicans are in a back-to-back. They're playing a third game in 4 days, where they got blown out by Houston on Thursday, but then they kind of bounced back. And I said I liked the spot for the Pelicans yesterday, and I didn't like the spot for the Knicks because the Knicks were coming off that big game, which was the trade battle against the Minnesota T-Wolves with Randall versus KAT on their new teams. And the Knicks went in and they hammered Minnesota on the road, man. So I thought the Knicks would be feeling real high on themselves coming out of that and not really pay attention to a massively injured New Orleans team. But the Knicks still wound up winning and covering in that game. They didn't get the cover by much, but they still covered. But still, New Orleans, they played a tough game in this one, man. If you look at how this game went, New Orleans was winning this game by double digits into the second half, and then they just imploded and they blew it. And they were still kind of trying to hang around later in the game. I mean, they got back to within single digits, I think, at one point later in the game. I mean, it's New Orleans. That's a game where they put in a pretty full effort, I would say. And now they're playing again right away off of that on a back-to-back. They're still without Zion. They're still without Brandon Ingram, who got injured right when he came back. They do have CJ McCollum, I'm pretty sure, but this is a massively injured Pelicans team, man. I mean, they do have Trey Murphy back as well, but man, I mean, you're looking at a team that's just, they're dealing with so many injuries right now, man. It's been a horribly injured New Orleans team. But yes, they do still have McCollum and Trey Murphy, so they're like kind of half a team right now. But without those pieces back, man, without Zion and with missing Brandon Ingram again, I mean, it seems like they're just they're not a complete team. They're an incomplete team right now. They're just not playing well. So in this situation and with this team, yeah, I mean, I think it is a fade spot to fade the New Orleans Pelicans here in Denver. They're the better team, obviously. I mean, they're laying a ton of points on the road. I think Denver is better than the record would suggest. I mean, the fact that they're 14-11, kind of crazy to me, man. I mean, this is still a stacked team with Jokic and Murray there. I mean, I think we're going to see Denver probably start turning it around a bit. I mean, we've seen stretches where they've looked like one of the best teams in the Western Conference, and I think they still probably are one of the like top 5 or so teams in the conference. And I think that's going to show. I think we're going to see them show up in this game, man. They are the way more rested team. They've had 2 days rest here, and they're finishing a 3-game road trip where they're 1-1 on the road trip right now, and they lost the previous game to Portland. So I think they're in a bounce back spot here, man. You lose to an ugly team like the Portland Trailblazers as a pretty big favorite, 8.5-point favorite. I think you're going to want to turn it around, man. So I think this is a focus spot for Denver after they lost to a bad team like that. They're going to be pissed. They're going to use that time off to make some adjustments here, and they're actually going to show up for this game, in my opinion. And it would be to have a winning road trip instead of a losing road trip, which that mentally kind of motivates you a little bit more as well. Even though, yes, I know they play Kevin Durant in Phoenix tomorrow, but man, I mean, you're coming off a loss like that. I do think you're going to want to show up and win this game. And New Orleans, like I said, they're in the much worse rest spot. They're coming off a game where they played pretty tough against the Knicks, and the Knicks are a tough, physical, defensive team too. So this is not a great spot for the Pelicans to be in, especially when they're still shorthanded as well. So give me the Denver Nuggets minus 9.5 in this one. You look at the injury situation. I mean, like I said, it's basically just all these Pelicans players are still out pretty much. I mean, the Nuggets don't really have a whole lot going on with their injury situation. So Nuggets minus 9.5. What's up, Zach? I wouldn't worry about that as a Thunder fan. The in-season tournament isn't really a thing that matters that much, even though once you get to the final, yes, I thought both teams would be motivated there. So I thought the Thunder would win that game because they are the better team over the Bucks, but I would not really put much stock into that. It's still not really something that matters that much at all. I mean, the Lakers won that tournament last year. Who gives a shit about that? The Lakers barely made the playoffs. I think they were in the play-in games. I think they got knocked out like right away. I think I won money on that, actually. So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. The Thunder are still going to have one of the top seeds in the Western Conference going into the playoffs. The thing that you should be worried about with the Thunder is playoff experience. Like, they're going to be one of the top seeds in the playoffs. They're going to make a deep run in the playoffs. The question is that once they get to like conference finals or something like that, is that like it's because it's a level that their players haven't been at before? Is that where they're going to finally like maybe like get caught and have issues there? I think that might be the case because they're still a pretty young, inexperienced team. So yeah, I mean, the Bucks are a good team though. So I don't know. I mean, the Bucks are a lot better than their record would indicate if they're at full strength, which they were in that game, I'm pretty sure, with Giannis, Lillard, and whoever else they got there, Middleton. With all those guys there, the Bucks are a pretty formidable team. I would not be too concerned, to be honest. All right, that's going to do it for me. Zach, thanks for hanging out. My plays one more time today. I got 4 plays today. The 2 NFL ones are the Jets +3, or it looks like you might be able to get +3.5 now. Seattle Seahawks +3. College basketball, Seton Hall +2.5. Maybe that one's at +3 now. And NBA, this one I think you got to get on now because I think it's going to wind up 10.5. I think it's going to continue to climb. Denver Nuggets 9.5. That's going to do it for me, man. This is the Thunder's year. No. I mean, these guys, I don't think these guys have been around for that long yet. I mean, look at how long it took the Celtics to finally get over the hump. And everybody was saying like the Celtics can't do it because they've never done it before. It takes multiple years. Look how long it took Michael Jordan when he was on the Bulls. I think that Bulls lineup, they had that lineup for like 6 years before they actually started winning championships. Like, this is how the NBA goes, man. Like, you have to take like a step up each year, basically. So the Thunder only got to like the quarterfinals last year. So now this is like the next step up, basically. Like, I don't think the Thunder are going to win the championship is what I'm saying. I'm sorry to say that, but I think they're going to make a deep run in the playoffs. I just don't think that they're going to win the whole thing because I don't think that they're quite there yet. I mean, my guess would be that the Celtics are going to repeat, but I mean, we'll see what happens when it gets to that. And I'm not just being biased with that. I mean, the Celtics, they're still the best team in the NBA. They have a ridiculously deep roster and they have tons of experience. So that is the way that I would lean right now as far as what I think is going to happen. But we will see. Thank you, man. I appreciate you watching, man. I appreciate everybody who's watching this. I don't know why people even watch this because it's mass autism, man. Yeah, hopefully I'll have some sort of breakout. Maybe from Carl and the Who Are They podcasts. Maybe, or Who Are These podcasts? Is that what it is? Yeah, maybe they'll, they got me some subscribers and maybe it'll continue, man. So we will see. Yeah, I mean, that's just what I think. I mean, no real bias at play there, even though I root for the Celtics, obviously, and I would root for that to happen, but we will see. Thanks for hanging out again. That's going to do it for me, man. Let's have another winning day. Yesterday was pretty good. It was fun, so let's have another one today, man. Hopefully that happens. There is still a chance that I can get back on the winning side this year. It's unlikely, but not impossible. I'm not going to try to force anything. I'm still being selective as I do. So hopefully they're selective enough that I hit like a high percentage of these in the next 9 days or so. And we'll see. Maybe it's possible. Let's have a good run here after a really bad run. That's going to do it. I'm Tower Gang Toad, and you can go follow me on Twitter, and you can go follow the Tower Gang podcast, the most offensive podcast on the planet, patreon.com/Tower Gang, and you get bonus content, live pre-show, post-show. We got a Patreon feed there with everything there as well. I got to upload the video because Patreon doesn't let you upload video, man. So it's a slog where I have to upload the audio and then I have to go over to Spotify and like separately upload the video. Very, very annoying. So I got to do that for the most recent episode. I don't know what our holiday schedule is going to be like. I know I can't do it on Wednesday or Thursday, so we'll see. I mean, Tower Gang, there might be an episode and it might be toadless, but we will see what happens with that. Whatever these guys decide to do, we will see. But I will be back with this show, obviously, because I can do this show in the mornings when I actually am not doing anything yet, because I'm doing things at night most of these days. So let's have it. Let's get some wins. Let's have a good one, man. It's going to do it for me. Peace out.